Cool, hi, welcome to my video. What you're going to be looking at today is a servicing of a specialised command post. The specialised command post has got three different collet sizes. One of the things you do need to notice is that if you're having trouble with your seat post staying down, the collet smashes from time to time and bits of the collet break off here. It's a common fault with the command post. You end up having to throw this part away and get yourself a new collet. One other service part you can do is you can do a new air seal on this, which isn't in this video, but I'll talk you through that later on. You need to start by disassembling your command post. The thing you're going to need to do with that is you're going to have to get in the end here, let all the air out of your command post before you start doing anything. It's really important so you don't blow anything off. You'll have to remove a circlip that's in a groove in the base. A very fine screwdriver is what you need to get in there. Cook that out carefully, remove that, making sure you've got a clean workshop so you see exactly where it goes. Once you've done that, you can slide these parts apart quite easily. You'll need to grip the top ring here with something like a pump spanner, which is really good to use. If you've got a pump spanner, make sure it's quite a big one. You'll have to open it up so it grips here. If you do this, you can see this one's been done before, it's slightly damaged. Do remember to make sure that you pack around your pump spanner with a bit of cloth to make sure you keep it clean. When you've disassembled your command post, what you will want to do is take something like a brake cleaner. Here I want to degrease this a little bit. You can make sure you clean it out. Once you've done that, do make sure that you get rid of all that residue, so at least you're starting from scratch with some nice clean components. You'll find a lot of dirt, you'll find a lot of rust, you just find a lot of stuff you don't really want in your command post. They obviously sit in quite a nasty area. When you're doing this, make sure you take the time to really go through all of your components, clean them. It is worth it while inspecting them in case you've got any damage to any O-ring seals, so that you can repair those or replace them as required. With your command post, if you have got a shattered lower part here, you can see this one's actually only got 3 elements set. You need a 24mm spanner to fit across here, and unfortunately a lot of people don't have a 24mm spanner, so I found a little solution, which means you can grip it in a vise. Here I haven't got the soft jaws in because I need a nice tight sharp purchase on this, and when you have got that, take something like a big bar, doesn't have to be an Allen key, just something, pop it through the eye of the post and you can unwind that. That's quite an easy thing to do. Obviously you'll need a little Allen key. Here I'm using a screwdriver style Allen key to remove, first of all, this little retaining cap that sits on the end. If you can, try and line them up. You'll need to remove all of these pieces. There is also, should also be in here another spring, so keep your eye out in case you haven't got that spring in there, and if you have, you can see exactly how these parts separate when they're laid out. Careful with your internal cable, making sure that you don't damage that in any way, because it's more difficult to repair and replace. But when you've got that pinched up, you can remove that kind of easily and unscrew this. Originally the top post, or this collet, is Loctited in, so it might be a bit difficult the first time, but afterwards you're probably not going to bother Loctiting that because you won't want that. Make sure you've got more parts in line and just keep an eye on where they go so that you don't forget those at all. When you've done that, obviously this part now is surplus to requirements. That's going to be scrapped and you're going to replace that with a new one. Here's a new one. There's 3 different sizes, as I said. Part number for this is specialised 2009099, and that's the one you need. Like I say, though, there are 3 sizes of specialised command post collet for this little job, so make sure you get the right one. When that's done, it's just a matter of putting it all back together. When you do, make sure with your command post you probably put a little bit of grease on the inside of these threads just to make sure it's good for next time. If you haven't got the time to go and buy a little bit better quality grease, something like an anti-seize paste from Specialized is pretty good. Comes with a little inserter brush. you can make sure nothing's going to get locked in there. When you do rebuild this, you'll need to take the time just to put this collet back together. Put these back together in the right order. You're going to have to take all of these little bits, you're going to have to put them back in the right way, making sure they fit in nicely to your work. You can just hand tighten that. You don't need to do any more at this point. When you've got this together, take care not to lose the grub screw out of the side, but feed it gently back in and try and get that to come through. It is a little bit tricky and it might take you some time to get that sorted out exactly. If you need to, you can completely remove the grub screw. I'll do that. I'll be back in a sec. Try and get that into place. You can look through where the grub screw side is, and with here just using a scriber, try and get that completely realigned. Here I get a pair of pliers on the nose of that to pull it out. You don't want this to be splayed out too much. Pop your grub screw back in, making sure you got a little bit of tension on there, because that will affect how the command post operates later on. Okay, make sure you've got that just right. A little bit of tension's all you need, and if you need to fiddle with that to get it even better, you can just back the screw off a little bit more tension with your fingers, and making sure that cable's pulled back all the way before just giving it a little tighten up. When you've done that, the command post has a couple of things you will need to do to it. You'll need to make sure that all the elements that came off it go back on it. Also making sure that the post's well greased up. Here you've also got two locators. Make sure you get some grease in those holes, both left and right of the post. With your guides, make sure they go in nicely. Push them a little squeeze. Push them a little squeeze on this side and make sure they're well set in. In a service kit for the post, you can get replacement ones of these brass bush guides, and it's worth getting those when you come to doing the air seal. The air seal on top is quite a simple job, just like doing a fork seal. You can slide this off, you get new seals to go in lots of different places, including this split seal that goes around the post, just opens up. You can get a new one of those. Make sure you grease all these parts up nicely. With your valve at the bottom, you get a O-ring that goes in there. Do make sure you give that a little bit of a grease up so that O-ring makes a nice tight seal around the bottom of the post. And it's worth making sure that that O-ring, or the circlip, sorry, that clips and holds that in, gets greased up, because you might find moisture getting through to there in your post. When it comes to the reassembly of your post, quite simple. Make sure that you've got the back of your post orientated with your lines on it. Make sure your post goes in so that the post and the seat post is the correct way. To drop this collet in, you will need to get an appropriate tool and activate the seat post. At this point, you're going to check whether obviously it works. Squeezing that down and goes in, clearly it works. Make sure you get that post in line. With the thread joining on here, do give that a little lube, because that will help that when it goes back together, and if you come to service it again, and you can start to tighten that up. Once you've got that tight down on there, make sure that obviously your seat post works, but also there's the last few things that you will need to do to make sure it goes back together nicely. You've got a nylon bush seal. This has to go at the bottom the correct way round. If you get it in the wrong way, your seat post won't work, so make sure you've double checked that when you take it apart, so you know now when it comes back together. The difference is there's a different length from one side to the other. Offer it in. If it doesn't look like it's going to go in and work properly, you need to turn it around. The longer side goes up. As an addition to the video, what you can do, and I've found this over the years, if you take about 3 to 5 cc's of any good suspension fluid, I'm just using some 5-weight Fox float fluid here, squirt that in. That will help support the seal at the top, and it will help lubricate it as well as oil. There's also grease in there. When you've done that, insert your valve into the base, backed up with your circlip into the base, and I suggest you make sure you get a screwdriver, push that down into the base slot all the way around before you go any further. When you've done that, get your shock pump, put some air in it. Make sure when you put some air in it that you've extended your seat post fully, because if you haven't extended your seat post fully, you're going to get a misreading on the air. When you've checked it is fully out, like that, if you haven't, the pressure will drop. I run mine about 40 psi, they don't have to be high, and then you're ready to go. You want to replace your valve cap on the end of that if you have got one. Sometimes I haven't got one on. And that's your seat post ready to go back into action. One thing I can do is make sure you can replace the seal. That's another job, but I've resurfaced my post, and that's all you need to do. Thanks for watching.